What is good, everyone? And this is your host, Haris Ricard, here for the All Fast podcast. And I am going to bring to you something very different. And I have talked about space news in the past before. And it was, I think, around 3 years ago where I talked about the most exciting ones for 2022. However, I want to take a different approach. We are now a month into 2025, and I just want to really evaluate the space events that have happened through this month and what has failed, what has succeeded, and what is really there for the next upcoming months. So we really should think of 2025. Every single year there are new innovations, or there are new thrilling inventions made for space exploration. Well, astronauts won't return to deep space just yet, and there's not really a lot of robotic missions on the moon or Mars, any different. But there's not a lot of progress there for NASA. We can really talk about or other space agencies. However, there are so many powerful new rockets that are being launched or just planetary flybys that will just eventually make the headlines. And I just want to recap for the month of January. Actually, just what are the key events to we have seen and what has really happened. So, first, we can talk about what happened on January 8th. We're at the Mercury exploration, which is the Bipai Colombo's final flyby. So, that was for the European and Japanese mission to pass just 160 miles above Mercury, releasing new images before it enters the orbit of 2026. So, we found that more on January 8th. And I want to talk about why this really matters. So, why does it really matter? When we look at the Bepi Colombo's Mercury flyby, it really provides valuable data on the least explored rocky planet in our solar system. Mercury, we do have not put a lot of our technology there because, of course, the sun is kind of nearby, and it it's not really much of a priority to really learn more about Mercury, as I think Venus is put more on priority. However, when we understand Mercury, it kind of helps us learn on the planetary formation, especially within Earth's own history, just really within how it was formed, essentially. And by the use of these gravitational flybys, especially by what Bepi Colombo did, when we use these spacecrafts, it demonstrates how we can efficiently travel further into their solar system and even get closer to other stars, especially those that have planets on it. And this can enable future interplanetary missions if we ever needed to. So I just thought that was just one thing we really need to think about. Okay, now this we understand a bit more of Mercury from the images they have sent, and I really hope you guys can check it out. Just search up Mercury flyby. It probably will be the first thing to check. So, a week later, on January 15th, we have come across new news from just one rocket, and that is from SpaceX Falcon 9. And with these two new moon landers, it will be launched by SpaceX Falcon 9, and it would be one, the Firefly Aerospace's Blue Ghost, and two, Japan's Hakuto R. These are two new moon landers that will launch within a couple months. I think the Firefly lander was attempt to land in March. It was announced on January 15th, and while the Hakuto R will take 4 to 5 months to arrive. And these two are supposed to demonstrate a shift towards the commercial lunar missions. That is to think about, okay, how can we colonize the moon much more? And that is something to think about later on when the news gets to those months. Which, if Firefly comes out in March, then we'll be able to see the Blue Ghost and what it eventually will do. And it also kind of relates to NASA's Commercial Lunar Payload Services program that wants to foster private sector involvement in moon exploration. And this kind of paves the way for a sustained human presence on the moon. And when you think about it, I don't know if anyone has seen the show Futurama, but I believe one of the very few episodes, it shows how the moon became an amusement park. And maybe NASA wants to decide to build a vision, and I think SpaceX kind of wants to build something towards that too. Maybe the moon is something humans can live in. That's not necessarily confirmed yet, but for colonization on the moon, if we think more of a sustained human presence on the moon, then yeah, maybe we can think on something more of an amusement park, or maybe a place for people to live. But then we'll have to think, okay, maybe there are other places out there that can, right? Although, yes, there are many theories on exoplanets, there are many theories on Mars. We can go into a tangent in that. However, I like to call if someone for the future, not someone from the future, but on the series The Future, that we could talk more so about the colonization on exoplanets and life on other planets with astrobiology. However, that's just something to look out. When you think of the Firefly Blue Ghost in Japan and Hakuto R, think, yo, maybe we can have an amusement park on the moon. Let's be honest. And then you can say, okay, does it align with NASA's commercial lunar payload service? So that's just one thing to think about. I would love for you to watch that Futurama episode. I don't know which one, but the amusement park on the moon. I don't know. Maybe you could think of that, and you watch that and think maybe it would be nice if amusement parks on the moon instead of Canada's Wonderland or Six Flags or whatever amusement park there is. Just go to the moon. Yo, you'll have a nice view of the Earth. Maybe you'll have a different gravitation. You'll have different gravitational forces. So maybe the roller coaster might be better. That's just something to think about. And the reason why SpaceX really announced these things, they haven't really launched it, is because they did a test flight for Starship, and that was on January 16th. And essentially, what happened was Starship's. This is the seventh test of Starship, and it was a successful booster landing, but the upper stage exploded after the separation happened. And that test included a dummy Starlink satellite deployment, and it failed because of an engine anomaly, which which is kind of sucks because Starship has kind of been out there for many years, and we're thinking, oh, when is it actually going to start? When is it actually going to happen? And these are supposed to, these this is designed for it to be fully reusable, and it could reduce the cost of space travel if this is really successful. But now there's more engine anomalies that Musk and his team have to go through, and that really is gonna kind of limit the time, or not really limit the time, delay the time for us to really think, yo, or oh, hmm, how long till we can eventually get to a better space exploration and technological innovation for this time? And will we eventually see us reducing the cost of space travel? And will we actually see it happen? And if it were to happen, then we can accomplish so many other things we'd be able to in space. Maybe take out space debris. Let's see. And yeah, that's just one thing I kind of have to think about more. Although the seventh test saw successful booster landing, the upper stage exploded right after the separation, and eventually the test had to. You really have to think what really went wrong. That's where Musk and his team decide. Oh, maybe in the future there will be more improvements for its success for it to be successful. And there's actually another one exact on the same day, January 16th, held by Blue Origin. They are building. They built New Glenn, and it was attempted its first orbital launch and booster landing, and it was another step for their reusability. Blue Origin has not really launched a much efficient reusable rocket. However, when you think about their first orbital launch on New Glenn, this was such an exciting news. However, it was told that Blue Origin actually called off the launch, and this inaugural launch of Blue Origin's new rocket, it was called off because of a troubleshoot vehicle subsystem issue. I don't necessarily know what that means. For anyone in aerospace engineer listening, you can maybe write this down. However, no date was really announced for the next test flight, and this was really shocking because Jeff Bezos is looking to challenge Musk as the dominant player in the commercial launch services. Essentially, what Blue Origin is really trying to do is they're trying to make space, they're trying to make deep space exploration more simple by other spacecraft that can be a sort of base for other spacecraft to build and really make improvements in space while on Earth, and that's their overall vision. How when will they do it? We don't know. We don't know. However, this was really their first test to make a reusable model of that. The new Glenn, hopefully soon, will possibly, possibly be a successful in the future. However, we don't know the time. Not Musk, Bezos has yet to uh, say anything about it. However, because of because of these minor issues, Starship lost theirs and New Glenn lost theirs. Now we have to think these two these two new models. So Starship is just a test bed for future Mars colonization, as it is designed to carry humans and cargo beyond the Earth's orbit. And New Glenn is trying to bring us closer to long term space settlement and the ability to mine resources on the moon or asteroids. So now we have to think more about it. How essentially could this help more, especially other space agencies, in their infrastructure? So if we see the foundation for Mars and for Mars colonization and long term space settlement, how long will it be until after that point where we eventually get to solve more on the issues of space debris itself, or just anything space, or a space infrastructure remodeling? In the sense, what I mean by that is, how can we really fix what's in space when we are in space? How can we fix the spit ships when we are in or not ships? How can we in spacecraft? How can we build spacecraft when we're in space ourselves? That is going to be a very tough thing, and I feel that with these two new launches in New Glenn and Starship, we can see the initial step towards it. As New Glenn and Starship didn't really work because of minor issues, we might get closer to there. We might get closer to there than possible. However, it is one thing to think about, especially for future space events that are going to happen later throughout this year. Maybe there are other places that are going to decide to make 2025 a very transitional year for space agencies to really take that next step. And that is really all that was left for January. However, we really need to think more about what comes for February, and especially with the two of them being completely, with the two of the big missions being completely failures, or these tests being completely failures. What is coming up next, and why is it really exciting? So, what to really expect for February 2025? And February just really brings a major moon mission and other interplanetary flybys, and a lot of space observatory. Oh man, observatory. So one is the NASA Moon Rover and orbital delivery which will happen February 26th, and this is will Intuitive Machines Athena lander that is set for the second moon landing, and that will carry NASA's rover to test lunar drilling and analyze surface particles. And NASA will also bring a lunar trailblazer that will hitch a ride orbiting the moon to map lunar water, which is a key resource for future missions. Again, back to that service that NASA provided before. This could also be a major step towards moon colonization. And this thing, if it's successful, it can mark a major step in commercial moon exploration and how it can also build on Mars and other planets we hope to colonize. And this will support NASA's Artemis program. On February 27, two things will happen. One, the Europa Clippers Mars flyby. That will be when in that was actually launched in October 2024, and that will use Mars' gravity slingshot towards Jupiter's moon, Europa. And Europa is actually believed to have twice as much water as the Earth's ocean, which is a prime candidate for extraterrestrial life. And that is actually very crazy. So after we see on February 27, where the Europa Clipper that will be launched to from Mars to Jupiter's moon Europa, we'll have to think, oh, oh, can is there actually life on a moon in Jupiter? And I remember a show called yeah. Well, I'm thinking of a lot of shows. You think of a lot of dystopian, especially when it comes to space. The 100 actually had a lot of the 100. I believe in the later seasons, it had humans living on a planet or a moon outside of I think it was Saturn, but could be Jupiter. I'm not sure if it was Europa. However, this is very interesting. How maybe that was the initial thought. But Europa is believed to have twice as much water as the Earth's ocean. So if we were able to see this on February 27th, that would be crazy, but we won't because the mission won't reach Europa until 2030. But this gravity assist will be a critical milestone in the long journey. If it eventually gets here successfully, then we can all think, oh wow, we'd be able to analyze another moon that could possibly help extraterrestrial. And the same day on February 27, that is where the launch of Sphere X Astrophysics Observatory will be created. And this is NASA's Sphere X mission that will create a 3D map of the entire sky, including studying of millions of stars and galaxies in an infrared light. So the major goal is to really uncover clues about cosmic inflation, and that is the early expansion of the universe after the Big Bang. If you believe in the Big Bang, then this will be kind of a big news. And after the launch of the SpaceX Falcon rocket, this mission will help us better understand how the universe really evolved. And the James Webb Telescope really does tell us more when from the more of the images we see, and that is pretty interesting. However, NASA's trying to launch another this Sphere X Astrophysics Observatory that will help them analyze and study millions of stars before that. So when we think of February, we have to think of these missions that just push forward towards moon exploration, or Jupiter's moon in this case, interplanetary travel, and just deep space research. And the Trailblazer, the lunar Trailblazer, and the Athena, which was the intuitive machines lunar lander I talked about, that will just help pave the way for the sustained lunar presence on our moon. And the Europa Clipper is actually a critical step to look for extraterrestrial life and sustained lunar presence on Europa. And this is pretty interesting. Of course, now to summarize all up, there are three things we still got to look for. So, New Glenn and Starship. The more we see of those, the more we see if Lunar is able to create a longer efficient space settlement spacecraft, and Starship. Essentially, we're trying to see if that can really help colonize Mars. And then now we have in February, if we can see these things successful, hopefully, then we will be able to see moon exploration based off the two NASA missions, and the Europa Clipper for the Europa moon in search for extraterrestrial life and sustained lunar presence. If humans could possibly live in the moon Europa, so that would be pretty sick. That would be pretty cool. So that is all for today. That's all I can really talk about, and everything that's good. Everything is good. I'll hope to cover on February next, and we'll be able to see. I'm very excited. I hope everyone's excited too. And this is the All Facts Podcast. I'm Harsakar, and I'm out.